Right here, does anyone see the slides up there? I can kill the lights if needed, but it might be okay. Okay, I'm going to be talking as well. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I know that wasn't a whole lot of information put out about tonight. You know, I sent a letter to the editor, talked about it in a few board meetings. Tomorrow or Friday, everyone's going to be getting a letter in the mail about Monday's public hearing on the sewer assessment increase. So people that didn't hear about tonight, we're going to get something mail delivered to them tomorrow or Friday. So those that didn't know about tonight will be able to come out then and state how they feel on these things. And I might even do the same presentation on Monday just to get the information out to people. So what I want to do tonight is just go through, because you read the articles in the paper, you might go to a meeting, but it's hard to really provide the nuts and bolts of really what we're dealing with right now in just a news article. So I put together a presentation. I'm going to talk about the budget, the challenges that we're facing, and some solutions that I have in that avenue. I'm going to talk about the upcoming sewer assessment increase, what preceded it, the challenges we're facing now, and then talk about my way I'd like to move things forward. And then last, any questions or comments people have, I'll just open it up, and whatever people want to talk about after that. I'm here for the residents. So with that, I'm just going to start up here. First thing I'm going to talk about is the budget. Right now, our village is facing the same challenges that villages everywhere are facing, towns everywhere are facing. All right, it's the same across New York State. We have less money coming in. Our tax base is getting smaller and smaller, and the housing market is not doing well, so as a result, we're getting less revenue from the mortgage tax and things like that. In addition, our expenses keep going up. Retirement costs are going up, healthcare costs, utilities, gasoline, salt, winter, all those things are getting more expensive. And just to provide some hard numbers, what we're dealing with in this current year's budget, retirement costs are up almost $200,000. This is in 1 year. Up 200,000, almost 200. Medical insurance is up 100,000, and workers' comp is up $30,000. That totals $300,000 in our budget this year that we can't control. And begin to question, is a village at this point really a sustainable model? These increases happening that we can't control. Well, I believe that there is a way to get the village to move forward, and these are just the ideas that I have. Some have already implemented, some I'm going to continue to implement. First thing, the second day I came into office, we went into austerity mode the next day. Only things that we absolutely need are we going to be buying. Any purchase that's over $500, I as mayor personally need to approve. All right, so it's only things we absolutely need. We've already begun to chop up the budget. For example, this year, there's not going to be any new police cars purchased. That's the first time that's happened in a while. There's not going to be a new DPW truck that they are going to need at some point, but now is not the time, unfortunately. So we're going to cut our spending as much as possible. Contract negotiations. Another big chunk of our budget is our salaries. And our salaries are very high. Now that's a good thing for some reasons. We want our employees to want to stay here and retain them. In the past, in other areas, you might spend money training your employees, have them get all that training, and then leave. You got to hire a big job somewhere else. So the fact that they're compensated the way they are is a good thing in that respect. However, right now, that salary line in the budget is increasing and more. So we need to be able to get that under control. Now, our unions, one union will be up in 2012, that's the police. The DPW will be up in 2013. We need to start now planning for those next rounds of negotiations so that hopefully when that time comes, we can get some givebacks and be able to get our salary and benefit line under control more than it is now. That's going to have to happen in negotiations. But if we plan ahead, and I believe that we have a great crew in the village as our staff. I mean, you read the papers, there's a lot of public employee bashing going on. I think that we have the best crew in Orange County there is. And a lot of our employees live in the area, and they have a vested interest here. So I think that when we have those negotiations, people will understand that, you know what, it's important that I put food on my table, but we are community minded. So I'm optimistic about that time. Now, the next thing I have here is looking at money at consolidation. I'm not a consolidation guy. I don't believe it would save a lot of money. I think I want to live in a village, and I like the identity there. We have good services. However, even though I don't think consolidation is going to save us a lot of money, Trustee Char, are you? I don't think consolidation would save us a lot of money. We have more and more residents that are asking questions about it, want answers. So I think we need to do our investigation to find out, would consolidation actually save money if we share services? Again, I don't think it would, but I think that I owe it to the taxpayers that are asking to give them answers and to do the study. And if there's free money out there to look into it, I think it would be unfair to the village not to look into it. Next, we need to find new revenue streams, whether it's the sale of the property off 17M, or looking down the resources that we have that we might not need. Any money that we can bring in, we need to do so. Hiring freeze. Now we need to have 2 hiring positions this year, and I'm going to explain each of those. Our treasurer resigned a few weeks ago. We need to hire someone new in that position, but I believe we can make that position a part-timer. So instead of paying a salary that's $60,000, we can pay a lot less, because they'll be new and it'll be a lot less hours. We're also going to save money on retirement and benefits there, because part-timers, we don't have to pay benefits. So we're going to save money there. We're also at some point going to hire another part-time police officer, because in the last contract, we were able to bring one on, and that's going to bring down our overtime hours a lot. It's a lot less expensive to pay one of our current police officers overtime than to pay a part-timer a small portion of that amount. After those 2 positions are filled, I think that we need to have a hiring freeze and be able to eliminate some positions through attrition if we get the opportunity. All right, after that, these are lesser things, but still important. We need to use electronic technology, green technologies even more. A lot of villages and towns have saved a whole lot of money just by switching their light bulbs over. And that may or may not be the way to go, but we need to constantly look for things like that. We need to look into more grants. Even if we don't need something at the time, whether it's a police car or anything else, we need to be looking for things like that, so when the opportunity comes across to get something, we know where the grant funding is. And all our department heads and the trustees that are liaisons are going to be looking at those things and doing a lot more research. And last, and this is something basic, but it just helps support our local businesses. The village board needs to be leaders and shop in our local businesses, tell people what they can offer, and really be the cheerleaders for Goshen. So that's my plan on the budget. And before I jump to sewer, the preliminary budget came out at 15%. And as you saw on the first slide, a lot of those costs are fixed. But I believe that we can still get that down into the high single digits. We can, for one, the treasurer position is going to be decreased in salary, that's going to help. And there's some other things. I'm meeting with our accountant tomorrow. We're going to talk about that as a board at our work session tomorrow night. So I feel that we can get that down more than 15%. So the second part I'm going to talk about is the sewer system. And that's probably why most of you are here. That's the hot button issue right now. And this is where a lot of the questions are. Now, I'm going to give a brief history of the challenges that we're facing. A lot of this is going to be secondary to most people here. You probably are familiar with everything, but I think it's important to put it in perspective. 2003, the village was forced by the DEC to build a new plant. The DEC said, your plant isn't up to specs, you need to build a new one immediately. The village did so, and they, at the time, borrowed $30 million. They had their consultants come in and say it was going to cost this much, they borrowed that money. They needed to raise the money to pay off those bonds. So that board at the time said they were going to raise the assessment to $100, and they had a public hearing on this. A lot of you were probably in the room at that public hearing. And as a result of that hearing, when the public came out with $170, no way, no how, that board said, okay, maybe we should start it off at $70 and then incrementally bring it up to the $100 that we need. The board at the time knew that they were going to need $100 to cover the bonds every year. They said, okay, let's make it incremental, let's get people used to it, allow people to budget more. That increase that was supposed to happen did not happen. It stayed at 70 all those years. So in 2011, our expenses in the sewer department are greater than our revenue. In addition, right now we're moving the dirt pile site that's off 17M. That's there as a result of the building of the sewage treatment plant. Back when they were building the plant, the DEC said, okay, you can build the plant there, but you have to move part of this dirt pile. Then the DEC said later, okay, actually you have to move the entire dirt pile. So now the DEC is saying, all right, well, we made you move the dirt pile, we made you move the whole thing, now you have to move it to a long-term location, and every day where you don't do it, we're going to fine you. So we've begun work. Right now we have about 65% of that dirt pile moved. When all is said and done, if the fines that the DEC has talked about actually happen, our final cost is going to be around $10 million, a little less. So as a result, it's going to result in a $170 quarterly assessment. It's going to go up $100 per unit. This is not what I wanted to be doing 3 weeks into office. This is something that I take very heavily, and it's something that I wish could be avoided. However, my job as mayor is to make sure that our village remains fiscally solid, and that we have the revenue to be able to pay off this debt service and not default on these things. So it's something that I wish could be avoided, but right now, this is where we are. However, I believe that in just public hearing information, it's Monday, 7:30. It's going to be right here, so we have a lot of room. So the question is, how do we move forward? Well, I have a few things. First thing is we need a new agreement with the town board. You know, this whole fighting and arbitration, wasting money on attorneys, it's not good for the community, it's not good for our bank accounts. It's wasting money, and there's got to be a better way to go about this. So we need a new agreement. Then we need new sewer customers in the village, sewer customers in the town, whether it's businesses or residential. I prefer businesses, but if there's residential that's coming in, that is what it is. We need to start talking with the county again about getting the jail online. The fact that the jail isn't currently hooked up to the plant is criminal. It's right down the road from the plant. It's revenue. It should be coming into the village. That revenue is going to the village of Florida, and that's not right. Also, something I would like to see is economic development down 17M. The amount of cars that go down 17M on a daily basis is immense. If there was more economic development there, we could bring a sewer main down that road, hook up every business down the way, bring on all those new customers. And that's something the county would support. And just speaking of new customers, you know, obviously, more customers is more revenue. The more people use the plant, using the extra space that we have, that's more income coming in. And when you do the math, every 400 new units, which doesn't necessarily mean home, that you could have a business that has a few units, every 400 new units reduces that assessment by $20. Okay, so if there's 400 homes built or a few larger businesses, that can bring us down $20. And we have the space for all these things. Now, the concern is, and it's a valid one, if all these houses get built, how does that affect the school district? Does that increase my school taxes? Well, from the village perspective, the houses that are being built, we have one requirement. That house, or that development that's being proposed, and most of them being proposed in the town, needs to prove that they would be able to provide their own sewer service if they don't come to us. Because these developers are saying, well, if we don't come to the village, we're going to build our own plant. We'll do it on site. We don't need you. So we say, okay, well, if they're going to be built anyway, we might as well bring them on as customers. We can't control it. Let's get some money on it. All right, so that being said, I believe that we can do those things that we need to move things forward, to get, in the long term, taxes down, to get the assessment down. Because I understand very well that it's going to be a difficult time for us, especially those on fixed income. One of the things that I'm looking at for the sewer assessment, or our attorney's looking into it, is can you give a discount to a senior citizen that's on a fixed income from Social Security, similar to maybe like the STAR program or something like that. We need to find out if legally that's possible without getting us in trouble. So that's something we're investigating. So moving forward, we're going to try to get new users, and really that's going to be my main focus. If my term is going to be about one thing, it's going to be about getting more people paying into the plan. It's the cost of whatever everyone else. So that's really all I have in the presentation. At this point, I'll just open up if anyone has any questions, comments, and we'll go from there. Susan.
Yeah, when you were preparing everything, especially on the budget, did you take it, are you fall into the category that 2% property tax cap gets taxed up in Albany?
The village, I believe that every municipality will fall into that, yes.
Right, so did you take that into consideration? That's going to be...
You know what, it's one of those things, if it was fiscally possible to be in under 2%, I'd be the happiest guy around. But I mean, those fixed costs alone, that $300,000 that we can't control, that propels us above that.
Right, but I mean, as far as the budget goes, once that cap goes into force, you're going to have another problem with that.
If the state can tell me how to trim $300,000 out of the budget, that is right now we're tied to, then I'd be thrilled to do it.
Okay, now you're talking about, you've got good ideas about bringing more businesses in, but I'll tell you, this is going to scare, this sewer assessment is going to scare a lot of businesses away, and a lot of people away. A lot of people, I think some people are going to lose their homes. And I think you're going to see a lot of seniors get hurt unless you do something. This complex right back here, every time that anything happens to the sewer bill, their rent goes up.
Sure.
Okay, and it's really, really difficult. Again, I would like to state that, look at a tax incentive for businesses to get them here.
Sure.
Okay, again, the progressive tax that I suggested last week.
I think that's a great idea. That's worked in other places as well.
It has. Like I said, you can work out a contract with these businesses. So after 10 years or a 5-year incentive, whichever you have to choose, they have to give back to the community. Okay? Again, I'm going to say, I think you can do an option for monthly payments. Pick one day a month that people can do it, or 2 days a month. It doesn't have to be daily, like I said before. I was a head accountant, I handled millions of dollars. If I said to my boss, well, I can't do that, this is too much, I don't want to hear that. And for my taxes, I want the best person treasurer you can get, the best people. You said you want the best people, so they're able to provide those services to make it easier for us, okay? And I know that you want to do that. I'm not being negative about it. You know, and like I say, it's the business. The jail, we should have been hooked up right away.
No question.
Because the Village of Florida wants to put up senior housing, they can't do anything over there because they don't have the capacity.
They're locked into it, right?
You know, then again, you have to worry about, you did have problems in the jail with stuff before. Major problems because they stuck towels and sheets.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I don't know, that's always been a problem,
But that goes to just good monitoring, good engineering practices.
and also, we also have to be aware of the possibilities of I mean, I'm an environmentalist, but I also believe in balance. We have to look at the people who are allowed to hook up. I had no idea that the county had another spill. And I don't know if they notified the village of it, but they sure as hell didn't notify those families out there. I was stunned when I read that article.
Sure.
I mean, so are they going to be trusted? Can we trust them, or are we going to monitor them? I think we're going to have to monitor them on a monthly basis.
Yeah, monitoring is going to be easy. We're just going
Okay. Because, I mean, our plant is not built to take MPT, whatever you call them, out of there, and I don't think it was built to remove carcinogenics either, any of that.
Right.
So we have to be careful. If we put that much money into it, and we're paying this debt down, I don't want to see anything happen out there.
I couldn't agree
You
more.
know? So I want to go on record for that.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else like to ask a question, make a comment or anything?
You know, Kyle, not name, just,
This is important.
you know, you mentioned here in reference about taking in revenue from out, say, from the town, okay? But I think one of the things you have to remember, the existing lines that we have in the village at the present time, you've got some problems there. So
Absolutely.
to take in extra with the existing old lines, you're gonna have a problem.
Absolutely.
And I think you're probably aware of that, but it's something that should be considered very highly, because, you know, it's nice to get the revenue, but can you handle it, getting to the plant? That's
Right.
a big thing.
Right, we have a brand new plant, but a very old.
Exactly.
And, a lot of the issues that we have, this year, we're going to be doing 2 major replacements of 2 areas in the system. We're under Erie Street, from the road to the manhole by the government center. That's all going to be replaced by the end of May or beginning of June. And we're also going to be replacing the trunk main that's outside of the sewage treatment plant to allow more flow to come in. Those 2 things are just 2 isolated things out of the whole system. But as we can get into users, if they pay hookup fees, we can allocate that towards these projects. So hopefully we can fix it as we go along. But yeah, no, it's a delicate dance, without question.
Have the users fixed a certain amount of feet if they want to hook up?
Oh yeah, well there's different things, the DEC has some things that they've done in the past, where they say, if you want to put 1 gallon into the plant, you need to fix 3 gallons of I&I.
Right.
There's different metrics that they use, and we're looking into all those things.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what we were discussing before the meeting, about the difference between a surcharge based entirely on usage versus the unit charge?
Okay, just why the direction we're going in and all that stuff?
Yeah, the difference between the two and the choice that you have to make.
Okay.
As you know, I'm absolutely 100% committed to committed to a charge 100% based on usage. But the board seems to have committed to this idea of the unit charge back in 2006 in the face of a lot of opposition from the community at that time. My feeling is it should be mothballed, but why don't you talk about that?
Sure, that's a very good question. The question becomes, when you're figuring out how much money we need to bring in, is it best to do it based on usage with the current rate structure that we have, or to do it through the assessment mechanism? And Joel, I understand exactly how you feel. When we first started talking about this, I felt the same way that Joel feels. That, let's make it equitable, do it based on usage. But what we found when we did investigations of the numbers is that in order to do it based on usage, you have to essentially create different tiers with your lowest level users, your next level, so on and so forth. Now we have our lowest level is a small amount of users, and the next level up is the bulk of our village residents. You have your families, even some smaller smaller families and some people that might live alone, we use a lot of water in that biggest category. And with this amount of money that needs to be raised every year, if you were to do it with the tiers, you would have the people on the lowest level paying next to nothing in the increase. The next level would end up paying something exponentially more. So let's say, for example, these are rough numbers, these aren't the exact, so don't quote me. Right now, if we say everyone has to do 170 a quarter, if we were to do it based on the usage, that bottom tier might pay 20 a quarter. That second tier, that's the bulk of village users, would be paying in the mid-twos or higher. And because a lot of those lower level users are places like the county one, that has 70 units in it, that don't pay property taxes to the village. But those 70 units, people aren't taking showers, people aren't washing dishes, people go home at 5 o'clock. So you would have the average users subsidizing places like the county one, who aren't paying revenue into the village. So that's the basic idea behind that. And in addition, the thing is also, if you do it based on usage, and you're anticipating this amount of revenue, people say, okay, we're going to use less water and bring down the rates, and you can't blame them for that. But then everyone uses less, and your revenue coming in isn't sufficient to pay off that bond, then you just need to raise rates again. So it's a challenging matter. Manny, did you have a question?
Yes, a lot of the developments that come into communities pay for recreation as far as putting in a park or something like that. Now, if they're going to come in and they're going to do 60 units up in Hamiltonia, they're going to do 60 units in there, why aren't you charging them a hookup fee for each unit?
We do.
And then let them pay an assessment after that.
Oh, we do. In the village code, we have hookup fees. They're that's per unit. So I'm not sure if it's either $2,500 for a sewer and $2,500 for water, or if it's half and half. But no, they're absolutely going to be paying hookup fees. And there's also legal mechanisms, I believe, where you can charge what they call similar to impact fees. Where if you say, okay, this is your hookup fee, and that's the cost of hooking up, but then if you're going to have this impact on this line you're running through, similar to what Bob was saying, then you also have to pay an additional X amount. Because a lot of these developers, and it's not as good now as it was 5 years ago, they used to say at least, well, we could build our own plant for $2 million, or we could come into your plant, so, if we want to build a plant, we might be able to give you $1 million.
Well, that's what I would lock it down to, because if you put in 60 homes, figure out what your sewer plant's gonna cost you to put up and operate it.
Right.
You turn around and say, well, give us half of what that hookup is, and you got sewer and water.
And that's absolutely what we're doing. The only challenge now is the amount of money the developers have compared to 5 years ago isn't as much, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't have to pay in. No, absolutely, we're doing that, and we need to do it. Why have the outside district users if they're not going to be putting something?
Well, it seems that the village here doesn't really, the village and the town really don't enforce that. And if you go outside of Goshen, go into Jersey and go into New York, I mean, I was in construction for quite a few years. And if a company came in and they wanted to develop, they picked, and if they went to whatever village or town that it was and said, what do you need? You got a garbage truck, you got a park, you got a pool. Here, they're coming here. We hold the cards. The land is ours. They come in, they put in a development, and they're out of here, and you're stuck with the bill, whatever goes wrong.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, your infrastructure is bad. That's one of the ways to get the infrastructure taken care of. Say, well, if you're going to come in and you're going to hook up here, you got to fix 2 miles of line for us.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got the cards in your hand right now with any developers coming in here.
Absolutely, and I think in the past that's been done to a degree. I know that when Harness Estates was put in, that developer was responsible for doing a lot of different improvements in the village. But no, absolutely, if someone's going to come in, we do hold the cards. And, you have to watch out because you don't want to do some exorbitant restrictions to make developers want to go elsewhere. So it's a fine line. But absolutely, someone that's going to be coming in, making a lot of money, selling houses, they should be putting in something to improve the community, which is going to be utilized by those residents. Absolutely. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Susan?
You're talking about expanding into the town. I think another thing that you have to look at, you mentioned preferably businesses. Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
School, God knows what's happening over there. Okay, that's going to be pretty bad next year, I think. But I think what you have to do too, with the tax variable, I just had a total blank on my whole mind was blank again. I forgot what I was going to say to you.
Well, just what you started saying.
The road, I'm concerned, another major concern is the infrastructure in the roads. I mean, our roads can't hold this kind of road capacity. So I don't know if you're gonna be talking to the developers about that. I mean, you're talking about having them fixing the lines in return for sewer and water, okay? And how does the rest of the board feel about it? Do you have a majority, you think, on the board?
Oh, yeah.
That's willing to open it up, like you've been wanting to do for years?
Oh, this village board wants more use, majority, absolutely. I mean, with the roads, a lot of these developments are gonna be built, hopefully in the town of Goshen. So we can justify getting hookup fees from them because they're gonna be using our plant.
Yeah, but the traffic in the village right now is really congested.
Oh, sure, I just don't know if there's a legal mechanism to charge out-of-district users for those type of improvements.
So part of the environmental impact statement.
Which is done by the town, though. I don't know if there's a mechanism. That's something we can look into, and if there's a way to do that, then I'd be happy to do so.
I mean, I think what you should do would be a good start is to have a meeting, town and village together.
Sure.
Have some developers there, have some businesses there, have a meeting of the minds, everybody sit, hash it out, and, you know, shared ideas.
Yeah, I said it this morning, but I took my ass to Bloomfield because we've had a number of preliminary conversations that have gone very well. He's reached out with open arms, and we've been having a lot of great dialogues, myself and the entire town board. So I feel good about that stuff, and I think we're gonna get somewhere soon.
And would you guys consider hooking those three families up with some decent water out there?
You know what? I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. No, we haven't been approached about that. We haven't got the conversation.
How about approaching Mr. Diana about it and saying, come on, let's help these people out on this area?
Well, I'm not sure what the village's place is in there, but I would have no problem doing
The
it.
water, where are they gonna get the water?
Right. I just, I'd have to learn
I
more
think
about
it
that
might be
situation.
one up on us to do something like that, to do something good,
Sure.
to help them out.
Well, I was glad to see it brought up. To me, is the root of all our problems, and it was the DEC.
Absolutely.
We got mad with the DEC years ago, and they have never let up. It's like we have deep pockets. That pile didn't have to be moved originally. This is my opinion. I don't know enough about engineering.
Sure.
That could have been taken care of. The DEC kept saying, it's not contaminated, it is contaminated, bump back and forth. And to me, that group is a bunch of idiots. That's my opinion.
Well, you know what?
Pass it on for that matter, but
I think that really what the village has gone through has been criminal. The fact that we were forced to build a plant, and they threatened fines, and they gave us such a short time frame, we weren't able to find outside funding. I mean, the city of Middletown is getting funding for their plant. Why couldn't that happen to us? Why couldn't the village give us more time? And now with this dirt pile, they've told us, well, if the testing shows that it's not hurting anything around it. But at the same time, they're saying, you gotta move it immediately. And it's just not right. And it's unfortunate because what upsets me more than anything else, and upset on using, nicer language than I'd like to, but they're saying, okay, you need to do this, so we're gonna spend money doing it, and they're talking about that they're still gonna fine us. I mean, that's just unconscionable to me. I mean, just to justify themselves, to pay off their employees. I mean, I respect the fact that, the environment, and I want to do everything to maintain it. But to make us pay fines after doing the right thing just doesn't seem fair to me.
Kyle, another question I have, reference to the sewer plant. From the day one, when they started the construction on that site for that building, for the sewer plant, wasn't it very clear to somebody that was a dump at one time? And all of a sudden, they came down and they said, well, you've got to move all this dirt, but why wasn't that looked into before that construction was even started?
From my understanding, the original plan was to move a portion of that stockpile. The DEC said, okay, you can move a portion. The village proceeded accordingly and said, okay, well, in our budget, we know that we're going to have to move X amount. I think it was like 30%. A minimal portion. Then I believe there was a changing of the guard at the DEC. There was a shakeup, so to speak. Someone new came in, and they said, no, actually move the whole thing. So, and at that point, the bids had been awarded and all that. That's my understanding trying to look back. I can't tell you definitely because I wasn't there at the time.
No, I understand. I'm just curious that, somewhere along the line, I think that before that site had to be, checked out, everything was ever purchased and built on it.
Oh, sure.
We all know, living around here, it was all a dump. Right.
You know that.
Well, there's nothing but a solid number.
Sue knows
It
it.
was seen.
I can answer every one of your questions that you have. I mean, 30 years ago, I became involved with every landfill here in Orange County. Orange County landfill, Surrey landfill, and the old Goshen landfill. I know what happened. When I went into office, the first thing I did was call for a meeting with Jim Ulrich, with Mr. Parizio at the DEC, okay? We all sat down, and supposedly, now this is a rule of thumb I learned from the first day upon graduation and in the military. CYA, you don't discuss things, you don't talk about it, you put it in writing. There was never anything done in writing. It was all, one guy from the DEC said, well, you remove half. So I said to Mr. Ulrich at the meeting, I said, well, where's the proof? Where's the writing? Well, so we sent each other emails, and I said, well, that's not good enough. You have to have letters. You have to have it in writing. So I said, so now here you are. You were told to remove half, which the DEC said. They never said. Never said that.
Well,
But you can go back. I don't want to rehash it. I don't want to go back. I don't want to say, there were a lot of mistakes made on both sides of the aisle. You've got a good philosophy. Let's move forward. Let's just get on, because you can't take it back. You can't go back to the mistakes that were made. It's over. It's done with.
There's still a bunch of idiots, I don't give a damn.
We were told not to move on it. Our lawyer told us, the village attorney told us to wait till the DEC notifies you, otherwise you're going to have to pay more money. So, everyone's at fault here. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I think being able to face up to them and admit to them makes you a bigger person. I wish you luck, and
Thank you.
you're doing a good job.
I appreciate
You're trying
it.
to do the best you can.
I got another question on the budget.
Sure.
You were saying that you're looking for ways to save money, which that's only common sense, But here we are sitting with this deletion thing over here. That's nothing but a big money fish. We should have never got involved in that in the first place. I'm not pointing fingers, but I was on the board at the time when that whole thing was taking place. And through politics, it all changed. And now, us poor people living here is paying a price for it. And it's a damn shame. Because that whole thing could have been done, it would have been absolutely a beautiful thing. It wouldn't have cost the village hardly anything whatsoever. But here we are. You're looking for ways to save money, and I give you a lot of credit, and I hope you can do a good job. But believe me, you talk about mistakes made, costly mistakes. And here we are. Nobody's got any money today, sir. And you're asking for more money to this and that for everybody, which is only human nature. But it's a shame. We don't need that solution thing.
The only consolation, and it's not going to change what's happened in the past, is this coming fiscal year, last year, to be paying off the bond on that plan. So after this year, we paid off, and it's not going to have an impact on our general fund budget.
It should be self-sustainable by then, right? Are they not going to become self-sustainable?
I'm not sure. I'd rather stay on just the sewer budget stuff than doing that tonight.
Well, Bob's got a good idea there. We were told that was going to be self-sustainable after a couple of years.
It's disgraceful the way that whole thing happened.
What do we pay?
Other things.
$85,000, Bob, from that over money. $85,000 goes from the town, $85,000.
Well, he's talking about Solution Park, which is paying off the
Yeah.
solution. That's separate from doing
But
that.
still, it's a lot of money.
Right.
Still a lot of money.
So-
Part of it.
I mean, sure, it's done, it's over with, but we're hungry.
I understand.
We are hung heavy with it. We don't even need that thing.
Sir,
Budget, pension question. You said there's about 300,000 you can't control. Going forward, every year it's gonna go up more and more. Tremendous amount, as they get older, you got a lot of longevity here, but salaries are pretty high for a small town. My question is, how many employees are we talking about in this village budget?
there's roughly 60, I want to say. Could be a little upshot of that.
And they're all union?
We have, our office staff is not union. So, right now, the way the budget's laid out is, we have our union employees, and the non-unions are getting basically treated the same way as the unions.
And what's the overall increase this year? Is it like 4%?
It's 4%.
It's pretty significant.
No, it is. I mean,
Most places, I work for a small corporation, about $400 million. and 1,800 employees, and, 2% raises are realistic, no raise for the last 3 or 4 years. 4% is pretty significant. And I know it's a contract,
Right.
and it's the same thing with school.
Right, and that's why
That's the same issues there. Healthcare, is there contributing, do they do things like that, or is it?
Those are all things that I'd like to see reflected in the next negotiations as we move forward. And we have great employees, like I said earlier, but at the same time, if you look at the private sector, a lot of those things that we might find in our salaries aren't replicated outside in the rest of the world. So it's something that we need to be mindful of. Yeah, but yeah, those line items are very high, and they're getting more expensive very fast. So, no, I agree.
It's cheaper,
Right.
It's almost like participation is the only way to go.
You gotta get givebacks, that's what you gotta get.
Right, I mean, it'd be nice, the state came through and had some mandates that, certain things, but we're not getting that support. So, we kind of need to recognize that we're in this by ourselves, and that we need to work up with the unions and things like that. Because, just to talk about the tax cap the state's talking about, which was mentioned before, if there's no mandate that we can attach to that, I just don't see how we can do that and run a village the way we're doing. And it's the same with schools. There's more mandates in school spaces than villages and towns. But the biggest unfunded mandate we face is the DC.
Absolutely.
And along that line, it's like running your household budget. You've got priorities. If you've got a broken cast iron sewer line in your basement that's dumping sewage, you don't fix the roof, you fix the sewer. You don't go out and buy the new TV, you take care of the necessities. Now, you've got a 6% increase in the police salary budget this year that would be met if we had, that increase would be offset by losing one employee, one patrol officer.
Well, that's why I talk about a salary.
Whether it's through attrition or reduction in force, but you could hold constant on that. We've also I've thrown out the idea of a sharing of services with the town and the village on police by having the county sheriff's take care of traffic police. That would cut the police budget for the town and the village drastically, and it would put us far ahead. It's going to be painful. What Bob said is true. You've got fixed costs that you can't do anything about. You've got infrastructure costs that are going to bury us. Right now,
I don't like the word bury us, because I don't think we have challenges, but I think we can face them.
For those of us that are going to be paying the tax bill, it's going to be painful.
Without
And that's what I mean by bury. It's going to break a lot of people because their taxes are going to be going up, and rather than moving into the area, people seeing the tax bill are going to choose to live elsewhere. It's going to drive down property values. And those of us looking to sell our homes are going to find that we're not able to sell them for what we thought we might be able to. It's going to have an effect on the community. It's going to be big. It's going to happen over time. So you can't do anything about that. Bob's absolutely right. You've got big costs, and it's going to be painful to deal with them. The board, the political machine in the village, has got to set priorities. It's going to hurt, but priorities have to be set. You know that, Ed knows that.
Sure, and I think that's what we're doing starting now. We're identifying those challenges, things.
I'm just putting it out there publicly. We've had this conversation.
Sure.
Well, it's just too. Over the last couple of weeks, rather than focusing strictly on numbers, we've also been focusing on setting some policy decisions as to how to move forward with certain things, such as not a lot of money necessarily in our budget overall, but office supplies. Everyone in this village uses office supplies, paper, pencil, this, that, and the other thing. We want to go more electronic, try to cut that next 20 or 30%. But we'll be talking about those things more as policy type of decisions and how to roll those things out. I can't get it all done, obviously, in 3 weeks, as you know.
Right. And the big costs are not in supplies.
The bigger thing that Kyle's focusing on moving forward is setting some policy mandates, if you will, and trying to then adhere to those mandates.
And that's absolutely the right path. I don't think there's anybody in the room that disagrees that there have to be priority decisions made. You have to approach it as policy decisions, and you have to have a long-term plan.
One more thing, I think everyone knows what's going on throughout the United States. People are negotiating, they are giving givebacks when it comes to schools, state workers. So negotiations are tough, but it can be done. I think people know They just realize the economy is bad. Would you rather have your job or not have your job? I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. Sooner or later, what happened in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, all those states, it's going to happen right here in New York. People are going to get to the point, we can't take it anymore. We just can't. We can't take it. Can't work in this world. We just can't do it.
Anyone else have any questions or anything?
Well, I honestly think that the other subject which was brought out before, getting together with the town and really sitting down, you guys do that. That's only common sense. You know, it's just like anybody else. If you have a disagreement, you sit across the table and you talk about it, but one guy walks one way, the other guy walks the other way, you're never gonna solve that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree
And
more.
believe me, that's music to my ears, as far as one person. I think that should have been done a long time ago.
You're not wrong about it.
We had good cooperation here.
Sure.
I'm going back years ago, and, you know, there's no reason why it should have ever got out of place, but it did. But now, somebody's got to correct that.
Right, and that's why, I appreciate the supervisor very much reaching out his hand, I've reached mine out, and I can say right now, the two boards are going to have a good working relationship. And we might not agree 100% of the time, but that's okay. We'll still be able to work together, we'll be able to find common ground on issues, and we'll move forward together. So I agree 100%.
Doug Lucas, somebody who was in the road tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you, Kyle, for laying it all out for us. I found it very informative. There were some less than good decisions made in the past, and I know you're living with them. And I wish you luck with it, and I think you're trying to do your best to deliver a livable tax rate.
Well, thank you very much. I
Before we
appreciate
go-
everyone coming out.
Before we go, I'm just curious, for those who have come out, and by the way, I'm very disappointed we don't have a room full of people, but so many meetings over the last couple of years have been absolutely empty rooms that anything's better than nobody showing up. I'm curious if I'm alone in my feeling that this really should be, the payment, and remember, we're going to be paying it for 20 years, that this payment of this bond should be based on usage and not on the unit charge scheme.
Oh, definitely.
I think so, too.
Well, we're having a hearing on Monday night, I'm sure we'll be able to hear more then.
Are there people that are on the other side of that? That feel that the unit system is a good system?
Well, Joe, I think that it's not really fair to ask people to lay it out there without having the numbers. Because, you can talk pie in the sky and say that, usage over assessment more equitable, but without really looking at numbers like we've done in that mentioned. Just to say, what do you think about this, and throw out a vote, I don't think that's really fair, and I think that might be your way of moving forward to that agenda. So I don't think this is really the right forum for that.
Let me ask you something, Carl. Does a business with two people working in an office downtown pay a minimum of $2.50 a quarter on water? Do they have to pay a minimum, whether they use that facility?
If it's the same rule for all units.
The same, see, that's why that unit and usage chart should be redone. Maybe not to the point of where it's totally, you understand what I'm saying? Tweak it here and there.
Well, so we always have to continue to reevaluate things as they change.
I mean, you don't have to go the whole percentage, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the way it's mapped out with the units, with what constitutes a unit, what doesn't,
Right.
and that chart's from the 80s.
I mean,
So
that's
it's something that's
30 years
worth
old.
Sure.
Say the diner is 3 units, okay? Make it 4 units. But then you have to figure it out how many gallons,
Well, there's a formula, I can get that sheet for you if you want to swing by this week. That's easy.
Yeah, but I think it's something that we could look at without making it totally, like making it unfair, making it more balanced. That's a possibility too.
You're saying have a hybrid system.
Right, absolutely, okay, that's the word.
And once we make a change, there's nothing that says we can't go back in a quarter or a year or 5 years and make a change there. No. It's our village, our laws, we can change.
Because people are gonna be stunned when they see this. It's a turnoff for businesses to come here, it's really hard. It's gonna be difficult for you to build a revenue base, very, very difficult.
Well, that doesn't mean it's not worth doing,
You
right?
gotta try it, you just gotta try it, you gotta do, like I said, do the incentives, do whatever you can get to get businesses here, to make up for what they're gonna be paying in that, and they can have a smaller tax.
All right, well,
Kyle, I got one more question.
Yes.
Like that, but You mentioned before about talking to the county about taking the sewer and the water hookup. Are you talking in the stages with the county now, or are you running, is your plan?
We have to do some number crunching on our side, and we need to find out if legally we can give an agreement that's different from others. Because right now, what the county's paying to the village of Florida, it's probably half what we would have to charge them under our current future rates. So the question is, since it's the county, can you have a different contract under municipal agreement with them? So that's the question we need to answer before we go into the formal proposal.
See, there's another thing, Kyle, not to bring up past, but that was all set when the new jail went into effect. Goshen was gonna take the sewer, okay? And we were gonna get the water from Lindbergh, from the supply. But you see, through politics, that all changed. It's a shame, because that was all set to go. I was involved in that, because I was a trustee at the time. We had meetings at the county level. Joe Rankin was the county executive. It was all set to go, and all of a sudden, it took a 360.
There's probably somewhere else.
It's a shame, you know, those kind of things that we're suffering now, you know. Well, just too bad. I remember this stuff, you know.
Back to the dirt pile. Is that monitored at all?
Yeah, we do testing, our consultants.
Not testing. I mean, the loads going out.
Oh, yeah.
They're not being scaled, I know that. Who's to say X number of tons goes out on each truck?
No, that's a good question. The mechanism is when they get to the landfill to bring it to, it's weighed, and they give our consultants the loading tickets. And our consultants review the loading tickets to say, this is what the weight was, this is what we're getting invoiced to make sure it's the same.
It is scaled.
Oh, yeah, it's scaled, but it's not scaled here, but it's scaled in the landfill.
Oh, okay.
Could they stop and pick up more dirt? I don't know if that's easy or hard, but our consultants seem to think it's the best way to do it.
All right.
What's the time limit? What is the time limit for them to get that out of there?
Yeah, I mean, we're working towards a consent order now. They want it done yesterday, for lack of a better word. I mean, but they're happy with our progress that we have made. So they understand that, we're moving the ball down the field. Right now, we're waiting to get the funding in order, because originally we authorized X amount of money, then the state came in and forced us to pay prevailing wage. Even though the contractor was happy paying his people below prevailing wage, we're being forced by the state again. So we have to get more money, so we have to wait to get that, and the contractor will start.
Actually, you're stopped holding it at the present time.
Yeah, we're holding off, because the contractor is the same people. So we have to get the rest of the money and everything.
When is that bond going to be coming in, the money from the bond?
About 2 weeks.
Has the bond already been flooded? Has it
Yeah.
been sold?
No, not yet, we're still in the last week. All right, well, wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I wish I had better news, but, my goal is gonna be to, hopefully a year from now, to be able to stand here and say, this is the progress we've made over this past year. So, and, I look forward to doing that. And again, Monday night we have our hearing, so by all means come out. Yes, we're right here, a lot of seats.
What is the actual issue, the title of the hearing?
I believe it's sewer assessment increase, public hearing, sewer assessment increase.
That's the title, that's the subject.
Correct.
Nothing else going to be discussed except that.
Correct.
Okay.
There will be a regular meeting after this public hearing?
Yes.
Kyle, when does the budget go into effect, and when do we?
It has to be approved by May 1st.
Wow. And you think you can knock off about 5%?
I think so, because there's also, because this fiscal year isn't over yet, we don't know what type of reserves are gonna be. So I'm gonna talk to the accountant tomorrow, because our sewer fund has borrowed money from the general fund, so we need to find out if there's a mechanism we can speed up that repayment and have that impact the budget moving forward. And if we can do that, then that can have an effect on a few percentage points. So, we'll get it about 10%. So I don't want to put a number on it, I want to be responsible, but I feel we'll be able to get it close.
When will that budget be ready for review?
Well, we have preliminary out now, but that's not going to be the final one. Monday night, we're going to probably be voting on the budget. So tomorrow, after I meet with the accountant, I'm going to talk to the board tomorrow night in a work session. We'll talk about it. And then whatever we talk about in our work session, that's public, that's public stuff after that, so.
Do you have, at the present time, do you have a person in mind to take over the treasurer's position?
We do, but I can't really get into the personnel stuff publicly. We're gonna talk about that tomorrow in the executive session.
That's very important when you're right now.
Oh, yeah, well, we have our deputy treasurer is the acting interim treasurer. So we have someone that's acting as treasurer right
Who's
now.
your deputy?
That's Sarah Moore.